think with the cost of business school, if your only goal is just to network, like what is it, 250 grand, something like that, I can just buy how many people drinks with that and instantly new connection. Or coffee or lunch, right? I can just, or flights, like, just take a few months off of work and just go really ham with the network and go to as many events as possible. Ask everybody out for coffee, fly to the East Coast, fly to the West Coast, wherever you are, and start hanging out on campus at their business school. So, I don't really have business school on my career trajectory anymore. Mm-hmm. I've already done it online, and I don't really see myself sitting in the classroom for 2 years of time. I'd rather be out there building and doing things. So I'm just going to go to meet people.
It's DeAndre here, and this is the Pioneers Show, the show where we talk with innovators, makers, entrepreneurs, and also doers, like in this episode. Basically, people who are trailing their own trails and creating their own lives, so that we all can learn how to work on our own lives. This is episode 14, and I'm your host, André de Albuquerque. You can find me at It's DeAndre on Twitter and on Instagram, as well as the show at Pioneers Show on Instagram as well. You should definitely check it out. We've been really upping the quality and quantity of the content we put up on Instagram. Go there and tell us what you think. In this week's episode, we have with us Ariana Thacker. Ariana is a multifaceted entrepreneur that, according to her, has worked in 20 industries. I met Ariana through her LinkedIn content, and believe me when I say she truly creates what it's usually called no bullshit content. We talk about skills development, LinkedIn, and a bunch of other topics. Midway through the conversation, we go on this weird rabbit hole of personality traits, and all I can say is that it was a lot of fun, and we hope you enjoy it. Without any further ado, let's jump into the conversation with Ariana. Welcome to the show, Ariana. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
All good, all good. Thank you for taking the time. I know that we're pretty much almost on opposite sides of the world, right?
Just about. Where are you in Germany?
Berlin.
Oh, you're in Berlin. Yeah, I'm all the way in LA. So just about opposite sides of the planet.
So for people who don't know who you are, care to give us a presentation?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Ariana Thacker. So I graduated from UCLA with a chemical engineering degree, but I've done pretty much everything but that since. I've worked in nearly 20 industries, which has been fun and super fast-paced. Traveled around the world, currently writing an ebook with my partner, Roshni Shalani, and doing a lot of fun stuff on LinkedIn, always reading, always learning, working with lots of startups in LA. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. There's also a few other big projects I'm working on, but I'll keep that in stealth mode.
Okay. So let's pick up right from here. So you mentioned you studied chemical engineering, correct?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, what brought you into chemical engineering? Because usually as a woman yourself, in terms of statistically speaking, it's not a field that attracts a lot of women, correct?
Yeah, I wish I could say it was a deliberate choice and I had this grand plan to become a chemical engineer since I was 5, but that really wasn't the case. As is the case with a lot of the things I find myself getting into, it wasn't really a deliberate choice, but, opportunity met luck and just went after it. So just a bit of a background. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an artist. And I was actually going to the local community college when I was in elementary school and taking all these art classes and just painting nonstop and drawing and just doing all these really artsy things. And I moved around a lot as a kid, so I was barely at the same school for more than 1 to 2 years. So that actually helped a lot in terms of that, adapting to different environments very quickly. And one of those schools was the Science Academy in Millikan Middle School. So at this school, it's really special. You take these really advanced biochem physics courses at a young age. So in 7th to 8th grade, I was exposed to college level science. And it kicked my ass. And I started off as a very average student in the class, but I worked so hard. And I became the top student in the class. So straight A's, won the award for that. And thought, hey, you know what? It seems like I'm pretty good at science. I could explore this some more. So in high school, started taking more AP classes and community college classes in science. My freshman year, I took AP physics and just went from there.
That's very funny because just to give you a general idea, I think you're the first one that actually, I think you're the second one actually, person that comes here in the Pioneers Show that actually wanted to become or to do something in the arts area. And you can say, or I can say, imagining to you that basically it happened by chance, right? You fell in love with science by chance.
Yeah, and I wasn't really good at school before the Science Academy. I don't know if it's just because I wasn't challenged or there just wasn't a teacher that I really resonated with, but it wasn't until the Science Academy that I actually started getting straight A's and got very serious about school. And then in high school, I had a 4.8 GPA, something like that. I got straight A's in there with as well as a ton of AP classes. And then there was a student in the high school that really inspired me to look more into chemistry because that was actually one AP class I didn't end up taking. Mm-hmm. And I just learned more about chemistry on the side. I was reading textbooks for fun, talking to him about chemistry during lunch. And I just applied for chemical engineering. I wasn't quite sure what a chemical engineer did. And I just thought, hey, this would look pretty good on a business card. Why not? Applied to a few universities and ended up at UCLA as a chemical engineer and just decided to stick with it.
You mentioned
the coursework
something
really clicked with me.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you mentioned that you had a student that inspired you to and inspiration. It's something that I really want to focus a big part of this conversation. So what did the person do to inspire you specifically? Was it any motivational speaking, or did that person give you a specific talk? What happened to make you become so inspired?
Yeah, I mean, he was very introverted, so it wasn't that. It was just more so subtle. He just lighted it up so much talking about chemistry, and he talked about chemistry all the time, and I'd always see him reading chemistry books. So I just got curious. I'm like, why, what's going on in this chemistry land? Why do you like the subject so much? And just started chatting with him. And I just fell in love with his energy towards chemistry, and it got me inspired to also look into it some more. Just the way he talked about it, and the way he described how chemistry works. It was just not something I've heard before.
Interesting.
So that was really enjoyable to hear. Yeah.
Very interesting. And another thing that for people who move a lot, either as a student or as already outside of the academy, do you think that the moving a lot, the thing that you mentioned, getting a lot of become able to adapt at a moment's notice because you had to, do you think that helped you end the transition from arts to science and eventually, like we're going to discover in this conversation, from science to entrepreneurship and making and doing stuff on a much more abstract level than chemistry?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think just moving around so much kept me formless. Like I can define who I am. I didn't let my environment define me. So, I'm in complete control of my interests and the goals I pursue and the industries I pursue. And I feel like, if you're in the same spot for a long time, you feel a lot of social pressure just to pursue one thing, either from like your parents or your environment or your friends or whoever you spend the most amount of time with, or even your own self-limitations, right? You're like, I'm this person, I can't change. But I've never really had that mindset. I'm like, okay, if I want to learn this, I'll just go ahead and learn it. I'll just buy some books online and, schedule meetings with friends and then go take an online course. And, I'll just find a way to do that. Or, like, for example, I don't even have social media besides LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook. I deleted my account a long time ago. I think I have a Twitter account, but I haven't used it at all. Like I must have like less than 10 followers on there. I don't do Instagram. So I never really considered myself anyone capable on social media, but I just decided hey, why don't I explore LinkedIn more and start posting daily and, really connecting with people and providing value and build a network on there. And just decided to hack away at that, even though I wasn't, quote unquote, a social media expert. So I never let those things define what I do or who I am.
And you mentioned LinkedIn, and that's actually something interesting because we actually met through LinkedIn. I was following you for quite some time now. And interestingly enough, you always seem to post things that are at the same time very inspirational, but also always focused on a personal anecdote to tell a story. And I think that's a very interesting approach that you have on LinkedIn specifically.
Right. Yeah, I don't like to bullshit. I'm not posting things that I don't know anything about. It's stuff that I've done through like my work experience or like helping someone else directly. So there's always a personal story tied to it, and like it's said in such a way that other people can do it too. Like it's not abstract. So the goal on LinkedIn is to take these really complex topics and codify them into simple and actionable steps. So that's the overarching theme with anything that I post on LinkedIn. It's like, how can others do it too? It may look complicated and mysterious from the outside, but that's often not the case with anything. If you can break anything down into small actionable steps, and then you can start executing.
Cool. We'll talk more about LinkedIn in a few minutes, but I really wanted to touch on another point that you mentioned, that you've been working with around 20 industries.
Yeah, close to that, between 15 and 20. And that's not all through my consulting work either. That also includes experience beforehand. So when I was working in corporate, when I was, internships during college, I even had some startup experience before college started. So that was really cool too. So just between my first job and now, it's close to 20 industries.
I mean, moving a lot, like you said, also gave you the capability of, once again, being able to do all these 20 industries, which seems at one point, even for a person with 40-year resume, 20 industries is quite a lot, right?
Yeah, but you'd be surprised on how much overlap there is and how much transferable skills apply to whatever you're doing within these industries, even if the projects are completely different, the role is completely different. I think a lot of people are held back because they're like, oh, I don't know anything about, the energy storage industry. How can I break into that? And I think it's just, trying and being okay with not being fully prepared, trying something new. Like, don't be a perfectionist about it. I'm not a perfectionist, and that took me a long time to change that mindset, because for the longest time I was a perfectionist. I had to get the straight A's, and the reports had to be perfect, and everything had to be perfect. But shaking off that skill was really hard. And when I did that, I just felt so much more comfortable just trying more things. And I've really stretched and grown quite a bit just from doing that, mentally shifting from not being a perfectionist.
You mentioned transferable skills, and
yeah,
let's take a step back on this specific topic. What is a transferable skill specifically?
What is a transferable skill? A skill that applies to several different roles and industries, right? So let's say you're a really good problem solver. That's not really confined to just one type of role, right? Or let's say you're really entrepreneurial. Like, there's a lot of different companies and industries and roles that can benefit from that quality. It might not just be like, oh, I know how to use customer relationship management software, right? But think about what you know about that, maybe organizational skills or finding leads or networking with a lot of people. Like, think about the tangible skills you can get from knowing how to use that and populating the data, et cetera, and what you can apply from there to other places. So that's a transferable skill.
Do you think that these skills are these self-taught, or are they acquired via experience, or is it a mixture of both?
I think it's all of the above. I think you have to push yourself to develop these skills, right? I wasn't born with any of these skills. Like, I definitely have to work really hard at anything I do. It's not nearly as easy as it looks, but know that once you find a good methodology to approach something, it becomes a lot easier, and not being overwhelmed by, oh, this is such a massive project or whatever you're dealing with. It can be broken down into little steps, right? So just not getting overwhelmed by the process and enjoying the process.
But okay, then let's take for example a student, someone who's just finishing college and is interested in a multitude of different industries, and it's not a technical founder. Therefore, that person wants to join a startup or venture off and create something. Do you? What would be your advice? Would it be try and read more and get these skills, or go work for someone else, get these skills, acquire, learn from them, or what would you tell them?
I think it's so circumstantial, but let's say you have a safety net. Let's say you can live at your parents and they're willing to, pay for your food and whatever. So you can take a chance, right? I would just say go ahead and just start making moves on whatever that idea is. But first do your due diligence and making sure there's a problem and understanding your customer, and putting together a business canvas is a good place to start. it's all about, setting a hypothesis and then validating that hypothesis. So talking to lots of people who are your target customer and really understanding their pain point and what's valuable to them and how are you going to quantify that value proposition to them and how would they describe your product, right? Picking up on those keywords, because that's what you would use in your copy and your advertisement and on your website too. It all ties into your marketing. So I'll just start creating, right? And if you don't have the technical skills, 1, learn them, or 2, partner with someone who does, or 3, hire someone who does, right? There's an option for everything. The internet's such a magic tool. You can find anyone for anything. Like there's really no excuse for that.
So, and for you mentioned that, you can learn them or hire someone who knows it and knows it way better than you will ever be able to. So, but imagine that I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate, but imagine that I'm a student and saying, yeah, but I'm not a programmer. You say, okay, you can hire someone. Yeah, but I don't have the money. You can partner. Yeah, but I don't know anybody.
Then get to know people, get to network. I think that person's coming up with so many excuses that I don't even know if they're wired to be an entrepreneur. Like they should be more solution focused and problem focused, right? Like if you're coming up with excuses and you're not even getting started, like you need to change your mindset to begin with.
I really love that answer. I always, and I think a lot of people become a victim of their own excuses without understanding that they're setting them or saying as excuses.
Yeah, you're 100% in control and you need to find a way to get it done. Maybe even get rid of your safety net. Make it so that this is something you need to accomplish, right? You get really creative when you're really struggling, right? If you don't have a safety net and you have to make $1,000 this month to pay rent, you'll find a way to do it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be honest. If I came across a month that I had to make $1,000 in a month, I think I would just grab my guitar and go to the subway and play, because that's one of the easiest ways to make money.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like a million different ways to make money, right? Like you just need to be creative and open-minded and you need to explore that. And maybe it's not the best option, but it's good for now and that's fine. Just keep moving forward. And then you can always pivot later, right? Like it doesn't have to be 100% planned. You don't have to wait till it's the perfect moment or you're partnering with the perfect person. But I think you should do a lot of due diligence with your partner, especially if you're doing an equity split. But it's just get things started, start testing it out, and see what happens. And the second you're coming up with excuses, you need to take a break and stop and just say, no, this is not the mindset I want to go into this with. I'm going to be more solution focused, and there's an answer here, and I need to find it.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And the main problem, at least for me, when I talk about this, is that I also am a victim of my own victim complex sometimes, or the excuse complex, because as a mechanism for trying not to not be courageous, the complexity of our brains to not feel like I'm a failure makes me get excuses that I don't consider as an excuse. And I remember when we talked the first time, you said that one of the main things that you like to talk about is getting the strength and the inner strength and the courageousness to do stuff.
Right. You know what? I think that just comes with getting rejected enough times where it just doesn't even affect you. Right. So just start making sales calls, start getting rejected by cute girls in public. You know what I mean? Just whatever it takes to get over that fear of rejection in your mind. And it just comes from practice. It just comes from repetition. Right. Like I've just tried so many things and I've had so many rejection stories from this process. It's to the point where it affects me a little bit, but not really that much. Right. So you can be a lot more bold in that sense. And I've noticed with people that they're very forgiving if you're very bold, but it's when you half-ass boldness is when, people don't feel comfortable or they start questioning what you do. So if you're going to do it, just go all in and just be fully bold with it. If you're going to pursue a client, just be bold with it, right? If you're going to talk to the cute girl, have a bold action. Because if you're like, oh, would you possibly want to go out with me? It's nervous, it's awkward, right?
Some people consider that charming, actually, but yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, well, sure. Depends your approach.
Okay, so taking a step back. So you said you travel out. So just to give or perform a little histogram or historiogram of your own history. So you finished college at UCLA. I assume you started interning in the chemical engineering space, correct?
Yeah, very traditional chemie. I worked for a biotech company and then a refinery.
Okay, and when did you start to travel? I remember you just said in the beginning of your presentation that you love to travel, and you traveled a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so growing up, I didn't really travel that much. We had a few international trips. Like I come from very humble beginnings, so and I don't really have the resources to just take these trips. I have to earn it, right? So I graduated from UCLA, started working for an oil and gas, upstream oil and gas operator, and it was a cool experience. But I didn't really feel at home in the location. Like I'm such a city girl, and moving to a more rural town was a very hard transition for me. Like it just didn't really go with my personality, or there weren't really activities I like to do, and I didn't really connect with the people as well as I do in bigger cities. So hard adjustment period, but I was, trying very hard to adapt. And there just came a point where I was just like, what am I doing? I'm not in a town I like. I'm working these crazy hours. I just need to take a break. So I guess it was like an eat, pray, love moment. I was going to actually originally take a year off, but I ended up only taking 6 months off because I got really bored of traveling. Ironically, I needed to do something mentally challenging. So just travel hack this entire trip. I ended up going to nearly 20 countries solo, and it was just a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends. And in some of the countries, I set a goal to meet at least 10 people a day, and usually that number was far exceeded. And I'm still in touch with a lot of those people today. In fact, like I'm seeing a couple from Australia. I met a lot of Australians traveling, which has actually influenced me to go to Australia for a bit to work and come back. They're going to come visit in September. So really good, hopefully lifelong friends from that trip.
Let's hope so. But not only did you set, but why did you set the mark to meet at least 10 people? Was it a personal voyage or a personal knowledge voyage that you wanted to prove to yourself that you could do it? Or the 10 was just a number that you took out of a hat and just ran with it?
Yeah, I just ran with it. What prompted that was the first day in Japan was just so awkward. I was just like, walking around kind of aimlessly, and I was just like, all right, this is going to be lonely for a year. I need to start meeting people. And I'm like, all right, well, how many people should I meet? Let's just say 10. So I just started meeting people and going from there.
Have you ever heard the podcast Art of Charm?
Yes, actually. A friend recommended that to me, but I didn't end up listening to any of the podcasts, unfortunately.
It's very interesting. And the founder of that podcast actually was recently, a few months ago, interviewed by Kevin Rose from dig.com.
Okay.
And he said that before he began the podcast, he went through a similar journey, but he was much more of an introvert, and he tried and made a conscious effort to talk with people and almost force himself to talk with people. And I think that's interesting that even though you don't seem like an introvert, you also had an approach, but looking for a different consequence for talking with different people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's very, it depends what my environment is. If I'm really comfortable, I'm a raging extrovert. But if I'm in a situation where I am uncomfortable, I do get uncomfortable, right? Like everybody gets uncomfortable once in a while. And it's those times where you have to step it up, right? Like get over those nerves and start meeting people and set a goal like that. If you're at a networking event and your nerves are killing you, just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to meet 3 people today, get their business card, and that would be an improvement, right? It's just improving incrementally from where you were yesterday or where you were a week ago.
I totally agree. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. Have you taken a personality test? Are you introverted or extroverted?
I'm an extrovert, but I know that I'm an extrovert, but I actually consider myself a fake introvert because I'm someone who can be very much an extrovert if I want to. But if I'm tired or anything, I would rather be in my own corner, listening to a podcast or reading a book or talking with someone about basketball. I don't care about anything else.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way. Have you taken a Myers-Briggs personality test?
Yes, I am the debater. I think that's There's this website called 16 Personalities that basically uses the Myers-Briggs test and says that I'm a debater, that whenever there's something that it's intellectually stimulating for me, I just like to go with it and don't shut up if necessary.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. Do you remember what the 4 letters were for that? I got the campaigner for that.
It's ENTP.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Cool. We're off by 1 letter.
And some of the things there are no rules. We're trying to accomplish something. I really love this.
Yeah. Yeah, personality tests are cool. I kind of went on a personality test binge for this past month. If you get a chance, you should take a DISC personality test.
I done that. I think I did that the other day, actually. I applied for
DISC?
Yeah, I think I applied for a job given thing, and I think I have it here.
Do you know what your results were?
Yeah, here. DISC. So this is, let me get the name. Okay, decisive, interactive, stabilizing, and cautious. That's the names, right? So
yep, exactly. Yep.
I have I have a little bit over the decisiveness. I have...
Okay, what percent? What do you know the number?
It's 56 out of 49. I'm trying to get the numbers. Okay, so...
okay.
So I have the values that are aesthetic, economic, individualistic, political, altruist, regulatory, and theoretical. But if I go to the DISC, it's 56 out of 49 in terms of decisiveness, 99 out of 81 in terms of interactive.
Nice.
88 out of 17 for stabilizing. And 14 out of 42 in terms of cautious. I'm not very cautious, apparently.
Yeah, we got the same C score.
So we're pretty similar.
Yeah, I got a 99 for D, a 99 for I, a 20 or so for S, and between 14 and 20 around there, very low for C. Just so for people who are listening, and this may sound a little bit weird that we're talking about, I advise you to take the DISC personality test and also the 16 personalities test, 16personalities.com. And the thing that in terms of the 16 personalities most interests me, to be honest, is that I've done the personality test in different times with different ages. And I know that some of the answers, I'm 100% sure that they changed, but it still gave me the same result. Yeah, you know what? Mine's been the same for, I don't even know, X number of years, however long I've been taking that test for. It doesn't ever change. I don't know. And yeah, you're right. The questions have changed.
Because there are things that you no longer assume that they have that much high importance to you. There are things that you now simply don't care or don't value that much. But apparently there's some weird algorithm there that always goes up to the same freaking thing.
Oh, how eerie. Crazy. Yeah. I think DISC was a lot more in-depth than 16 personalities. What did you get, a 70-page report from that one? Did we take the same one?
I took the Tony Robbins one, so it's...
Yeah, I took the Tony Robbins one. Yeah, so it was a 70-page report or so. And it just goes so in-depth, your preferred communication style, how you like to learn new things, how you listen to others. It just goes so in-depth. It's crazy.
I think the funnier thing is that then the same thing goes to the 7 dimensions of value and motivation. And when I talk with my girlfriend, she laughed a lot because it's literally aesthetic. It's the thing that I don't care the most. It's as long as it's done, I don't care if it's beautiful. And in terms of regulatory, I don't care about rules. I just want to be, it's literally written here. You are able to be a multi-threaded problem solver, able to shift gears and project in a flexible way. I literally do not care about anything else.
Break all the rules, just make it happen.
I think my managing director back in Paris said that it's something about, everybody's heard about that done is better than perfect, but then he had a poem about the perfection. And it was a weird poem, but I'll see if I can link up and send it to you later. But it was a very interesting poem that goes around the same thing, that done is better than perfect.
Yeah, I mean, depends on the job. It's I don't know, I'm under the knife. I'd rather the surgeon be perfect than just done, right?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But once again, these are skills that to be done have to be perfect.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. So how do you shake off that perfectionism? Like, how have you ever had that, or is it just natural to just, kind of bull in the china shop, just get it done and keep going?
I can be one of the bigger procrastinators ever. At one point,
Oh, okay.
I think if something happens, I'm a very mission-driven person, but at the same time, I can be a master procrastinator. So, which means that sometimes when the push comes to shove, I try to be as close to done than perfect. If it's something that I truly love and go to the perfection, usually that is either takes too much of my time or I get bored with myself.
Right.
Does that happen to you as well?
Like procrastinating, or
the struggle for trying to fight off perfectionism rather.
I think, earlier on in my career for sure, but now it's just I've developed these new habits towards, I'm very much focused on it getting done rather than perfect, and just being okay with that. And it took, so. Yeah, I think, as we've mentioned throughout the podcast, done is better than perfect, and just developing the habits to be okay with that. So let's say you have a PowerPoint presentation and, not all the fonts are the same or the text is aligned, depending on the circumstance. If it's for a client, maybe, clean it up a bit. But if it's internal for the team, then is it really necessary? Is it really worth your time? And think of it from a company perspective as a business owner, right? Does the business owner want you to be spending an hour improving the aesthetics, or would they want you to spend an hour looking for other cost savings within the company, right?
Yeah, of course. I totally. But the thing is, when we're talking about clients, there's this weird line, that's unwritten line, that it comes between done versus perfection and done versus not caring at all. It has to be well done at least.
Yeah, aesthetics impact your credibility definitely with clients, right? Like, you want it to be presented well, because if you have a spelling error in your PowerPoint presentation, then you're probably losing your audience right at that moment, right? Or if it's not aligned, if it's not aesthetic, you're going to be losing your audience. So in that sense, it should be closer to perfect than just done.
An interesting thing that we mentioned about clients, that you've mentioned that you've done consulting. In which kind of consulting do you do specifically? Or don't you have any specific consulting?
I don't feel like I'm really a consultant, because I don't just, throw out ideas, I actually run with it and execute and start building, right? Like, I don't just leave the client hanging. So it's not really a consultant, but I don't know what to call it. But it's not just one thing, it's all sorts of things.
But are you more of a contractor almost?
I've had different types of business relationships with people, like partnerships, revenue sharing, co-founders, contract work. So it's kind of a blurry line on what I do. But it's, I guess, just higher level. I solve problems and I just get it done, right? No matter what it is. So just a Swiss Army knife, I'll find a way with tools I know and the resources I have to get that problem done.
But if I may ask, how do you solve that? Imagine that, and I'll put myself in this situation. I'm not going to ask for someone that might be listening. I'm actually put myself on the spot. I am someone who's been toying mentally with the idea of eventually consulting with startups and with companies in terms of innovation. But these skills that I assume that I have are not measurable. So how do you sell this idea of an intangible skill, an unmeasurable skill at one point?
I show the proof. So I have a pretty decent resume and lots of quantified results on that resume. So, saving X million dollars here, doing this product in just 3 months. So there's a lot of proof, right, through my work. So I show them what I've done and map out a plan and an end goal for whoever I'm working with.
So when you started, how did you do it?
I guess I wish I could say that was deliberate too, but that was also totally by accident as well.
It fell on your lap.
yeah, it just kind of fell in my lap, and lots of people wanted to work together and partner together and just start making things happen. And I was just like, you know what? I don't think I'm really a great fit for a big company. I think I can do those jobs, and I think I can, smile each day and like it enough, but I don't think it's where I'm supposed to be. So I switched from the upstream oil and gas company, went on that travel trip, started working for a startup, one of the founding 4 members of that, the first 4 team members for that startup. Really loved that experience, really loved the startup culture and pace of work and just the minds you work with. It's just super fun and scrappy and interesting and really ridiculously ambitious if you think about it, and decided to just stay with startups from there. And opportunities came from my network and people who have worked with me before, and new opportunities actually largely using LinkedIn and building relationships with people and people making introductions to others. So you just get started. But I made a lot of mistakes. I'd recommend getting a good lawyer to write your contracts. I'd recommend getting a clear vision of what service you provide and just focusing on that one service. So let's say you can do everything, but you're really good at marketing. Just maybe start off with pitching marketing, because that's a lot easier than doing what I'm doing, where I'm just like, I can just do it all. I'll just figure it out for you, right? It's hard in terms of pitching yourself to others. So I'm actually working on what's a better strategy to approach new people. What's the right title? What's the right pitch? So that's where I'm at currently.
Interesting. And right now, most of your business is consulting plus anything else, or do you do consulting on the side on top of a business that you already own?
I'm doing a few different things. So I'm also working with this homeless student shelter in LA. So helping them find funding, just give, more awareness to their cause, and whatever resources that they need, just finding a way to provide it for them. And also donating time, donating resources. So there's also that. There's also the ebook, and just posting on LinkedIn daily, on top of a few other projects that are in stealth mode too, as I mentioned earlier.
Going back to this transferable skills idea, is there any book, any resource outside, or any resource rather, that you can recommend for people who are interested in this whole idea of a transferable skill that can be used in a multitude of dozens of industries, that can make a person truly not only location independent, but can make them also industry independent? Is there any book, any resource that you can recommend?
I have a huge list of books for that, just because there's just so many different subjects to look into and read. But I'd maybe just start with The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I think that's a really good primer.
Mr. Timothy Ferriss.
To get started. Yeah, 4-Hour Workweek. There's a lot of these types of books, right? It depends what your goal is. For example, if you want to get better at negotiations, maybe purchase Getting Past No, Never Split the Difference. I'm trying to think of another really good negotiation book. It has Yes in the title. It was also, I think, the same author as Getting Past No. I'm blanking. Do you know what that book is?
No, I never heard of it. I've heard of the 4-Hour Workweek, but Getting Past No, I've never heard of it.
Oh yeah. There's tons of books, and it's just getting started on subjects you're interested in. Just looking at my bookshelf, it's seriously a big hodgepodge of different things.
And one of the things that I also, I can actually talk about this. One of the things that I first got to pay more attention about what you were posting on LinkedIn, and we're still going to mention LinkedIn, of course, but was the super resource folders that you were sharing when you were applying for an MBA.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about that. There's this mega resources folder on my website. So that if you're studying for the GMAT, that's really helpful. When I was applying to business school, and I ended up doing it online. So I went through Smartly University, which is cool. It knocked out an MBA in a year. Yeah, Smartly. And it's actually a legit online program. The average GMAT score through that is around 730. So that competes with really competitive schools. And also they accept only students from, I think, the top 15% of schools. So it's actually pretty competitive to get into Smartly. And side note, you don't need a GMAT score to get in. And I've met some really cool people through that, even though it is completely online. There's a Slack channel and you interact with everybody. And I met like a handful of the people in person through their LA events. I even flew out to the East Coast and met up with some people. So it's been a really cool experience.
Interesting. I've never done an MBA. I'm not even close, but I've actually toyed with the idea of doing an MBA. The thing is, I still think that in order to me to get the maturity to understand in real time what I'm being told, I think I need a little bit more experience under my belt to be able to say anything and to really appreciate what I'm being taught. And I think that's what a lot of people actually fail. They're just going through the MBA route rather without even learning what they are supposed to be learning about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this in class. There's times where the material just clicks and you're able to make all these connections and like come back with such a sense of, wow, that was such an interesting approach. And then there's other times you're sitting in class where you're like, what is happening? What? I don't even understand. Like there's no foundation. There's no connections in place. So yeah, I think that's smart. Also, I think for what you're doing, you're just so naturally good at business and so business minded. I don't know if an MBA would be so useful for you, right? It's expensive in terms of time and resources, like especially since you're more entrepreneurial. Does that really make sense? Is another question.
That actually was a question that I had for you. The thing for me is if I ever go and do an MBA, it would be more for the network itself, but I know that I can build a network personally speaking, and even with the podcast, I can build it. But I think that I don't know. I think it's a cop-out at the same time to not read some books. If I'm being told what the book has said or the book has, I also have the knowledge that the books give me, but at the same time, I have a diploma that says, yeah, this kid knows business. Even though I can prove it, like you said, with results, nobody has ever talked with me or asked me that. Interesting. Now you're interviewing me.
Tables have turned. Yeah, I mean, totally. I think with the cost of business school, if your only goal is just to network, like $250,000, something like that, I can just buy how many people drinks with that and instantly new connection, or coffee or lunch, right? I can or flights, like, just take a few months off of work and just go really ham with the network and go to as many events as possible. Ask everybody out for coffee, fly to the East Coast, fly to the West Coast, wherever you are, and start hanging out on campus at their business schools. I actually joined Forte Forum, and through that, it's just this like pre-MBA program for women in business. So I'm meeting so many different women in business through that program. There's actually the Forte Forum tonight, where all the different business schools are attending and all sorts of people. So, I don't really have business school on my career trajectory anymore. Mm-hmm. I've already done it online, and I don't really see myself sitting in the classroom for 2 years of time. I'd rather be out there building and doing things. So I'm just going to go to meet people, right? There's so many of these different events there, and I don't need to spend $250,000 or go into debt in order to do that. But, some people do. Like, some people do need a serious career refresh, and they want to go back to a big company, and this is the best way to pivot, right? So of course. This is very general advice. It totally depends on your circumstance and your goals. But go through that pros and cons list and think like, okay, is this the best way to get to my end goal? Is this the best way to accelerate where I want to go?
Interesting thing that you mentioned what the money can get you. Actually, one of the founders, one of the guests that I had here in the podcast before was Jag Singh, and he didn't have an MBA, and for him, he said literally that he took kind of a Tim Ferriss route. He had money to invest, and instead of paying for a business education, he started investing in startups to learn with them.
Right. Yeah. Same with Jason Calacanis, right? He's a pretty big angel investor. He just started writing checks for startups, and who knows how much he's worth now, right? Like there's probably better uses of that money depending on who you are and if you're going to put it to good use. But Like it's totally dependent on you. Like I think that's why these personality tests are good. It's good to understand and be self-aware of what your strengths are, what your capabilities are, and find ways to stretch yourself. And also just explore yourself a bit more. Like think back to your experiences and trials in your life, and you're like, okay, why did these issues happen, or why did this happen, or why did I make this decision, or where did this decision take me? So spending time to really analyze your past life, right? Like what's been going on in your life, and how did you get to where you are, and where do you need to go next? Interesting.
That's a very interesting approach. And I hope that everybody that's listening is writing some of the things that are being said here, but because there's, like John Lee Dumas says in the Entrepreneur Fires, there's true fire bombs here being set out in terms of good knowledge. And thank you for sharing those ideas.
Yeah, no worries. That's sweet.
Focusing a little bit more on LinkedIn. You said that you don't have any, you don't have Facebook, you don't have Twitter, or if you do, you barely use it, if at all.
I forgot the password. Like I need to reset it. Yeah, I probably have like a few tweets, and that was a while ago.
So what got you interested in LinkedIn specifically?
I just saw that it was so underutilized, and there's just so much potential. Like looking at Instagram, I saw it was completely saturated, right? Like starting a new page on Instagram, a new company page, it's going to take tremendous effort. And that's one. That's probably not even the top reason. The top reason is there's just so much potential, right? There's just so many different people using that platform all the time, and you have access to so many professionals, right? I didn't find myself connecting at that caliber, right, at that level with those types of people on Instagram, on Facebook, right? I just don't think that's where these professionals live and spend their time and day. Mm-hmm. Also, I like talking about intellectual topics, and I like, posting about things to help others do things. And also I like learning too. So it's just such a good platform to learn, and then to share what I've learned. And I don't really see myself doing that on Instagram, maybe on Twitter, but it's not really enough characters to convey the message effectively.
Of course. Funny thing that I used to be, as a very young person, Facebook used to be a very proponent and very important social media in my life. But since the Cambridge Analytica thing, I basically just go there to publish the episodes of this podcast and just don't care. And one of the things that I've been feeling is that LinkedIn is a much more valuable tool and learning opportunity that a lot of people give it credit for.
Yeah, 100%. And you just meet so many, like your next co-founder might be on LinkedIn, right? There's just so much happening there all the time. And with the right type of message, you can connect to anybody. If you use LinkedIn the right way, it's just so powerful. So I really recommend exploring that some more, perhaps writing some content too, because you get a lot of connections that way. I get a lot of messages a day, a lot of new connections just from the content being posted, right? So, and everybody has something that they could share. People are like, I can't share anything. I don't know anything. I don't know what to publish. I'm like, yes, you definitely do. You live a completely different life from anyone else on this planet. Of course you have something to share. So get that thought out of your head and just think critically, like, all right, what am I good at? Or what experiences have I had? Or what makes me unique? Or what's a personal story I could share? And just post it on LinkedIn and start posting daily and being active and committing to that kind of discipline, right? Instead of 30 minutes on, An
interesting thing is that even the idea that you don't know anything, it's a good content. If you are upfront about not knowing what to post, not knowing what your skills are, you're actually putting people on the journey. If you keep doing and publishing every day, like you said, taking 30 minutes for it, basically if you start with this part of the story, I don't know what I'm good at, or I have no story to tell. Basically, you're getting people into your own story, and that you can share what you're learning, what you know now, and be able to value yourself as well.
That's such a good 2-line hook. Yeah, totally. Like being vulnerable on the platform. One, it's very interesting to read and relatable, but two, it also just does really well. So being vulnerable in that sense, it's really powerful.
And at the same time, I think is that there are so many bullshitters on LinkedIn as well. Unfortunately, there's bullshitters everywhere, and there are a lot of CEO founder people, but there are not a lot of people saying I screwed up or I don't know. People get get tense when they have to show any kind of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of the posts lack subtlety. Like, it's so clear that they're just promoting themselves or their company or their product or whatever, right? Like, a more subtle approach does way better on LinkedIn. And if you're on LinkedIn to do those kinds of campaigns, like, you first need to provide value in your posts consistently, and once in a while, like, sprinkle that in, right? But don't make it all of the posts all about you all the time, or all about your company, or all about your product. Like, you're going to immediately turn off your audience.
So, and to take on LinkedIn as well, how did you already said that you were interested, but how did you start creating your content? Was it just one day they decided, okay, this is a very, very valuable tool, let me figure out what I can do with this? Or did you read anything, any post, any LinkedIn influencer that turned you on into building your audience on LinkedIn?
I got interested in e-commerce for a bit, so started exploring that some more, and then realized so much of e-commerce success is tied to online marketing. So just started looking more into that, reading as much as I can from so many different influencers, like tons of articles all the time. And I really started studying what goes well and what doesn't. And then I started running my own tests, right? So I started on LinkedIn just kind of testing. Does this post do well? Okay, no. Does this post do well? Nope. What's different? Let me iterate it again. Okay, this one did better. What changed? You know what I mean? So just tweaking it each time and perfecting it. And it took me months to get good traction, right? It's not instantaneous at all. Like, I was speaking to a friend recently, and they were just saying, like, oh, this post isn't doing well. And I'm like, all right, well, it takes time. Don't expect your first post to be a home run. It takes consistent effort, and it takes understanding your audience and really paying attention to what does well and what doesn't, and setting a hypothesis and testing it, right? Like, a lot of my posts are complete duds, right? Like, they don't all just take off, and some really take off. Like, the GMAT resources, at least 5 million views. Like, I haven't checked it recently, and over 100,000 emails sent out with those resources. So that was a huge home run. But other posts, like, maybe 10 likes, that's pretty embarrassing, and that's okay, right? You either delete it or keep it and just keep moving forward and iterate. Like, what went wrong here? Being really self-critical. And
for
going
sure.
from there.
For sure. I really, really, really enjoy the post that you have. And to be honest, one of the things that also lately have been getting me to post a little bit more about the Pioneers show, about its development, have been by following people like you that share personal anecdotes on and how they learned a lot. For example, the Pioneers show recently got to its first 1,000 true downloads. It's still early.
Nice.
It's still early. It's still not 1,000 per episode still. But the truth is, it all starts from here.
Yeah, you just got started. Yeah, that's amazing. That's great traction. Because you just started what, like a few months ago?
Literally 10 weeks ago. The first episode was released 10 weeks ago to the day.
Wow, that's amazing traction. Seriously, that's awesome.
And it's literally.
So how did you do that? Like.
I'm going to be completely honest, is that my girlfriend did the design for the Pioneers show, and that was incredible. And I think that also having already a good following from Portugal, knowing a lot of entrepreneurs in Portugal, knowing some journalists in Portugal, and having a good following in terms of friends, got me to a place. But then the thing is, I think that the themes that I'm talking with people about, the people that I'm talking to about, and even piggybacking on their own audiences, it's helping me show people that there's a lot more to talk about than just always the same thing. Oh, you work hard and you can do whatever the fuck you want. No, I want to tell a story, and I want to get to know that person on a personal level. And I think that the business journals, everything, there's never a personal connection at the same time. I like to laugh in the conversation. I like to do everything in the conversation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, working hard is just one small piece. Right. It's so much of it is just like who you know. It's because if you keep your head down and just work hard, but no one knows about you or knows about your product or your business, then that's a failure.
Of course. And the thing is, most of the people that I've been getting, it's literally they either fall on my lap or, for example, with you, I send out a message saying, I've been following her for a few months now. Let's see. Let's see if it gets. And you say yes when we have a 30-minute talk last week, and then we were talking here for over an hour now. It's literally something that just happens, and people are nice enough to give me their time so that I can share with an audience that it's striving for a different kind of content, striving to learn how to change careers, how to build their own careers?
I think I think your message was more than just luck, right? Like you knew how to phrase the message to get a response. Because I get a lot of messages where I just don't respond to them just because, like, it's probably spam. Like, everyone's just using LinkedIn Helper to automate sales messages, which is why I added my last name to my first name, so I know what's automated and what isn't, because people aren't going to address me as, hey, Ariana Desiree. They're going to say, hey, Ariana, right? Mm-hmm. So that's already one filter. But just the way you phrased the message was so nice, just so appealing, right? Like, I don't see why you're not going to get a lot of responses.
I've been getting actually a ton of response. And the thing is, for me, it's always a personalized message. For you, when I wrote you the message, it was literally, I've been following you for a long time. I have still on my Google Drive the mega resources folder, so I've been following, so I know what to tell you. A few weeks ago, I tried approaching a CEO. He actually said no, because right now he doesn't have a lot of time, but I literally said, I love your product, and I think your product, like what I want to do, empowers people, so I really want to get you on the podcast. So I think actually ditching these automated message services and just going for the personalized approach. Like, it's better to double down and spend a lot of time writing, like, let's say 5 personalized messages in a week than sending out thousands of generic ones. Oh yeah.
Because it's quality. It's not quantity. Like, you want to be very targeted, like, with who you're contacting and what you're saying. And sure, not everyone's going to respond, but you're going to get a much higher yield and just a way better connection that way. And
on at the end of the year, or at the end of the day, it's literally that idea that your net worth, it's your network. And if I'm just adding people because, that's not interesting for me. And I think that won't be interesting for anyone who's listening to the podcast, because I want them to show them as well, for people who are listening, that the conversation that I'm having with you, which is being great, and thank you so much for taking the time, literally means a lot, but it's not bullshit. We're literally having a good conversation. We're learning from each other. I'm learning from you. I hope that you're learning from some things that I'm saying. So this is achievable for anyone who has a mission and is willing to work for it, and at the same time who is willing to go through their goals.
Right. Cheers. What's your biggest strength? Like, what do you think drives you to do what you do, or is your secret superpower that just attracts this success for you?
I don't consider myself successful, first of all, but the thing is that I think that's my super strength, is that I'm mission driven, to the point that I have my own personal mission to the end of the world, and that my personal mission changed a lot, but I think it's very concise right now, and that I believe in the idea of helping people in a very selfish way. I like the way I feel when I help people, and I like to learn from what people learn as well. I like the Socratic method of learning. And when I ask you a question, I'm literally trying to understand from what you're learning. But at the same time, if I ask you a question that you don't know, we're both learning at the same time. And I think it's the thrive by mission driven statement that I can work 35 hours in a row if I believe in a mission. For example, before I started my diet, I never had any fasts. And I remember one day I was just so focused on the thing that I was doing that I went like for 30 hours without eating, because I was just focused. Of course, in this, I slept, but I just focused a lot. And now let me change the question back to you, if you don't mind. What are your biggest strengths?
Sure. Good question. I think approaching things in a very simple way. There's a lot of the problems I'm getting. They're posed very. Like, they're very complex problems, but usually the best solutions are simple. So just ignoring the irrelevant and focusing on the simple, elegant solution to the problem. So I think that's my biggest strength. So just dealing with a lot of ambiguous data and information, and even a problem statement, even the other person doesn't know what they want. They're just like, just do something. Mm-hmm. So being in a very ambiguous environment and distilling it down to, okay, what's the simple, elegant solution to this big jumbled mess? So I think that's my biggest strength.
Very nice. And if you don't mind, how did you find that strength specifically? Because a lot of people talk about self-awareness, and I would like to know, how did you come across that strength, or that to be aware of that strength?
I think it was just repeatedly told to me. I don't think I was really aware of it, especially like really early in my career. Like I really had no idea what my strengths were. Like I thought my strengths were like, oh, I have a lot of energy or a lot of passion, or I have a strong work ethic. But I don't think those are just. Yeah, I think it was just talking to a lot of people. They're like, wow, okay, that was just such an ambiguous problem, and seeing other people struggle with not really having a well-defined problem. But, I really like those types of problems where there's no easy answer right off the bat, or it's not very obvious. So like, I think I excel in those types of environments, and seeing other people comment like, oh, okay, you can really parse through all of that and come up with a simple solution very quickly.
Interesting. Well, this conversation has been great, and I would like to know if you're now willing to jump into lightning round.
Yeah, what's the fire? Yeah. Let's just do it. Don't tell me what the fire round is.
No, I have to explain to you what a lightning round is. A lightning round, a fire round, whatever.
Okay,
it's
sure.
It's basically really simple. I ask you one question, and you have 1 minute to answer.
Oh, okay, sure. Hopefully I can answer it in less than a minute. How many questions are there?
Eight questions.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. I'm ready.
First of all, what's the book or books that have impacted you the most?
Disciplined Entrepreneurship by Bill Aulet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I pronounced his last name correctly, but I got really inspired when I visited MIT and their Martin Trust Center, and just the volume of startups that come out of MIT. And then I discovered this professor through there, and it was also recommended to me by a friend. So I bought the book, and it is by far my favorite book on entrepreneurship. Like, everyone talks about lean startup, but I think Disciplined Entrepreneurship is really, really understated. And I think it should be everyone's guidebook if they're getting started as an entrepreneur.
Perfect. Tell me something you've changed your opinion in the last 6 months.
Changed my opinion on in the last 6 months. I would say what makes a good partner in business. Now I have a whole new list for that. I think before I was a bit impulsive. Like, I would just say, hey, we get along as friends, and obviously you do good work, and you have great energy and you have great drive. But it's so much more than that. When you're partnering with someone, it's integrity. It's, are they committed to the project? So starting off by doing very short-term, part-time projects with someone to test the business relationship. Because just because you get well personally doesn't mean you work well together or have the same communication style or the same mindset or the same goals for the project or company. So I think that was a learning lesson / shift in mindset recently.
Interesting. Very interesting. Do you have any life motto or quote that you like to live by?
Don't think, just do. Not
Love
to
it.
that extent, but, think less and do more.
Love it. If I were to give you 6 months to prepare to do a TEDx talk, what would it be about?
Actually, a recent presentation I did for this women's conference. So it's called Rock a Mohawk. And it was just like, because I had a bit of a mohawk thing. I cut my own hair in high school. It didn't look great. Like, you could probably... it was actually a really bad haircut, but my mom was so sweet and so supportive. She's like, that was your best haircut. I was like, don't lie to me. Yeah, very sweet. But rock a mohawk and just encouraging people to be more daring and more bold with anything that they're doing, and just to bring that full energy into everything, right? If you're going to approach that cute girl, or if you're going to do whatever, right? Just be bold and just put a lot of energy into it, and don't even think of failure happening, right? Like, don't even think that's an option.
Yeah, failing is not an option. I totally agree. Yeah. Before we go into the plugs and getting to know, there's one last point that I would like to talk about. And this is actually something that I never thought I would do, even though I say this in the intro of every podcast. But I think you fall in the category of a doer and not necessarily a maker. Makers are the ones that nowadays we hear about, the indie makers, the developers. They are location independent, but you're not necessarily a developer. So as a doer, is there any resource, any tools, any websites that can someone listening to this conversation right now, going somewhere, walking their dog, washing dishes, whatever, you can tell them to, what are the best tools that can have right now to be more of a doer like you, like yourself, a consultant, build your own business, anything that you'd like to give to our audience?
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to a lot of it is organization and planning. So just sitting down, getting a spreadsheet open or getting Asana open and coming up with all the little details and the little steps, something that you can execute on, and setting goals for yourself for each week, right? Because if you're tackling starting a new business or doing a new product or whatever, it's a beast of an endeavor, right? And it's easy to get discouraged or not want to do it after a few months, or, oh, it's so hard. But, you just start to love the process because you have the process broken down into little steps. And it's okay if those steps change, but sitting down and coming up with a detailed plan, I think, is important, but also being flexible and saying, okay, this plan isn't working, let's change it. But it's important to set those kinds of goals for yourself. So if you're not really great at networking and you're like, hey, I want to get better at networking, maybe, download the Shaper app and download the Mixmax calendar app and start booking people on your calendar, send out a link to your calendar and start getting 30-minute phone calls 10 times a week, and reaching out to people on LinkedIn and downloading or subscribing to the calendars and seeing what events are local and what interests you, or going to meetups, or even hosting your own meetup, right? You can do these things, you can initiate them too.
Well, I think that was very, very helpful. So now, Ariana, where can people find you? How can people get in touch? Everything.
Yeah. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn. So Ariana Desiree Thacker. There's one other Ariana Thacker somewhere in the universe. So my current tagline is founder, creator, engineer. So connect with me on there, and send a message. We can definitely get in touch and get a 30-minute call together, or just exchange some messages.
Well, Ariana, this was a great conversation. I really, really love this conversation, and I hope that everyone outside got a chance to learn a little bit more about you, but at the same time, become inspired to build something. And I think that's one. If there is something to gain from this conversation, more than advices, more than a resource or book, I think everyone could be very, very inspired from this conversation at the same time. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, that's really sweet. Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Thank you very much.
Such good energy. Yeah, this is such a fun Wednesday morning. So cheers. Thank you for that.
Wednesday morning for you, almost the end of the day for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and with this, Ariana, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Thank you so much for plugging into this episode. I truly hope you loved this conversation as much as I did. If you are considering getting a business education, be it formal through college or whatever any other way, or through a self-taught route, you can't go wrong with the mega resources folder she shares on her website. This and any other information that you might have missed will probably be linked up in the show notes. If you enjoyed this conversation, consider subscribing to make sure that this podcast grows and we can get to more people and help everyone be the pioneers of their lives and careers. Another thing that you can do and help me out a lot is drop a rating and review on iTunes or in any other podcasting platform that you're listening to this episode right now. A big thank you to Ariana for her time, and a big thank you for Thibaut Flondlin, aka DJ Rodia, check it out on the show notes, for the new music of the Pioneers Show. Once again, it was really